As you can see, when I say we are live in the hive, you're going to get to see this image all day long. This is the epicenter of the life of a honeybee. And as you know, they're social organisms. They represent the pinnacle of invertebrate evolution, and we humans are supposed to represent the pinnacle of vertebrate evolution. So there's a lot of parallels, connections, and influences between humans and honeybees. And before we go into the show, it's very important that we recognize the people in our community, the members of our tribe that helped put the Bee-a-Thon together. So I just wanted to show you a quick list of thanks of people who are participating. At the top of the list, of course, is everybody here at Davis Media Access, the executive team of Autumn, Jeff, Alex, Derek, and Diane, as well as the volunteer staff that are helping produce this, my assistant producer Laura, Matthias, Matt, Tyler, Cliff, the whole crew here at Davis Media Access, and then, of course, the entire list of guests. We have over 24 guests on from around the world. 4 different countries are represented across 3 different continents, and you'll be able to see them all day today. Now, the good news is that the entire broadcast will be recorded, so if you miss some snippets in the 12-hour marathon, you can always catch up on it later. So I also want to thank the City of Davis for helping make this happen, because this is one of the most special places in the world, especially since our connection happens with the UC Davis. The University of California, Davis is one of the top honeybee and agriculture research schools in the entire world. So when I say we're at the center of the hive, that's really what this means. But the exciting part about today's Bee-a-Thon is the message is simple. Wherever you live, whatever you do, you don't have to be a scientist. You can connect with the natural world, and how you express your connection is part of the story. So we want to say thanks to everybody who produced the show, and without further ado, why not introduce really today the star of the show? I would like to tell you a little bit about the honeybee, because many people have seen a honeybee, but not everybody gets to take a deep dive into how fascinating they are. So now this, of course, is the beautiful Apis mellifera. Apis mellifera is the European honeybee. So in the headline news that you see of things about colony collapse, pollinator decline, agricultural use of honeybees, this is the creature they're talking about. This creature was brought over to the New World in the 1600s, and it is truly a remarkable, remarkable creature, one of the most amazing in nature. And I want to show you some of the parts of the honeybee, just so when you see them in the wild, you know what you're looking at. The first thing that you'll notice is their beautiful color. And they have all this fur on their body. So insects, of course, do all kinds of responsibilities with plants. Plants needed something to move their pollen around, and that's why they enlisted, through the evolutionary symphony of pollination, the insects. Well, few creatures are more specialized for both gathering nectar and pollen than the honeybee. And these hairs right here cause an electrostatic charge on the body of the bee. So when they land on a flower, they create a negative charge, and literally the pollen grains jump onto the body of the honeybee. Another thing you'll notice when they're collecting pollination is right here. These bee baskets, this is actually the pollen that collects on the rest of their body. So as the pollen collects on their body, they scrape it and push it down into these little baskets, and that's what they take back to the hive. Now, I want to point over here as well. The wing on this particular honeybee is a beautiful structure for aerodynamics. But okay, my brain works in both directions, but sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down. We're gonna have to go back as far as pointing it in different directions. So we're gonna go like this. There we go. I feel like a weatherman, right? You know, the storm coming from the front. No, it's coming from, here we go, the wing right here. As you can see, this beautiful structure for aerodynamics is a little bit frayed at the end. Bees, when they forage for nectar and pollen, go through a lot of problems. Now, most bees, especially the ones you're familiar with, only live 6 to 8 weeks long. And they do all their work, all their different responsibilities inside the hive in that 6 to 8 week period. But there's more to the bee too. So let's go to the next slide. Look at this beautiful structure. This is a micrograph. Now, one of the important things about this is that we live in the digital era. You and I are living at a time of unprecedented access to information and unbelievable context. So part of the mission of the Bee-a-Thon, and as I've mentioned, the Insect News Network and the Insect Tribe, is to take all the information about insects, this vast array of stats and figures and facts, and put it into context. And with the digital media, we get to do it in a way that no human society has ever been able to do. People, our ancestors, used to dream of understanding a bee like this. So this is a micrograph of a bee, and I wanted to point out this structure right here. Of course, this is the antenna I'll go this way. This is the antenna of the bee right there. Now there's two parts to the antenna. There's the one that connects to the head, and then the one that connects and senses the flowers. This top part is how they smell. When they look for a flower, they're looking for the finest sense of pollen and the finest nectar. But the back part of the structure is really fascinating too. That's how they sense the vibrations inside the hive. That part of the antenna is how bees talk to each other, because they're essentially deaf. So when they're vibrating and making motions on the hive, that's how they can pick up those signals. Now, you might never see that as well, but let's go to the next slide. So these are the legs of the bees. Look how complicated these are as structures. They have 6 legs, and each leg is, there we go, each leg is specialized with different parts to do different roles inside the hive and inside the body. Remember, I mentioned that they collect pollen as well. They drink nectar from their mouth, and the next slide will show you a fascinating thing as well. This is an image that most people in history have never seen, and unfortunately, maybe unless they watch the Bee-a-Thon, they might never see again. This is the foot of a honeybee. This amazing structure and engineering. It's such a simple yet sophisticated machine. They can stand on smooth surfaces and on woody surfaces or concrete using this foot. The pad right here is like a suction cup that works when the bee is on a smooth surface. But then when it lands on a tree or on the side of a building, it can hook with these two little structures, these two pink structures right here. These are the hooks of the honeybee foot too. So I'm going to pause right there and just remind you, this is happening every day. You don't need to be on the Bee-a-Thon to take this deep dive into the microcosm. You can search the internet, or you can just go out into your backyard. Your garden has all of these amazing things just waiting to be discovered. And if you feel like you're part of the insect tribe, once you make these discoveries, share them with other people. What you think and how you feel about your connection with the natural world, about your role, your artistic expression inside the human society is just as important as any theory or any scientific fact. Next slide, please. Okay, we're back inside the honeycomb. Real quickly, there's a division of labor inside the honeybee hive, right? So you have the workers, which you see, and those are the ones that actually leave the hive. Most of us in our lives will only ever see the worker bees. In a hive of 100,000 bees, there's probably close to 90,000, 95,000 worker bees. These are sterile females, and their entire lives are dedicated to building the hive, to supporting the community. It's quite a beautiful idea. They harvest the food, they build the honeycomb, they get the nectar, and they rear the young. Very rarely, however, one of you might see this fella. This is a drone. In a sense, the drones are kind of lazy. They're kind of indolent. They are only here for one reason, and that's to reproduce. They don't harvest, they don't do any building. As a matter of fact, they don't even feed themselves. Their sisters feed them as well. So the male drones have these big eyes, as you can see right here, and those eyes are designed only for one thing, and that's reproduction. And there's one more entity inside the hive that you have to know about. Next slide, please. That's the queen. Now, the metaphor of the queen bee is one of the most popular metaphors in the human society, and it's also grossly misunderstood. The queen bee is a little bit larger than the worker bees, as you can see them circling around her right now. And inside the hive, once the queen matures, all she does is lay eggs. All day long in total darkness, sometimes as many as 2,000 eggs a day. She walks from one cell to the next. She measures the depth with her antenna, and that's all she does is reproduce all day long. A queen might live up to 2 years, sometimes 5 years in a healthy hive. But here's the exciting part. The reason the Bee-a-Thon 3 is here to bring you into this deeper understanding is because for the most part in your life, you might never see a drone or a queen bee. You will only see the workers outside the hive, unless of course you're a beekeeper, and probably the biggest group inside the insect tribe as far as people passionate and knowledgeable about symphony of pollination and reproduction are beekeepers. One more slide. Okay, so we're back inside the hive, and this, as I've mentioned on the show before, this is the internet, this is the city, this is the acropolis of the honeybee hive. It's made from wax, which the young bees secrete off their bellies, and then they chew and mold into these perfect shapes. And folks, as you go throughout the Bee-a-Thon, you'll see a shape every day, all throughout the broadcast. It's all over the Insect News Network. It's the hexagon. The six-sided geometry is a very special shape, not only in the natural world, but for the insect tribe as well. These hexagons store the honey, they store the nectar and the pollen, and they rear the young. So inside the hive, this is the skeleton, this is the life force of a honeybee hive. And of course, it produces that sweet, delicious honey that we all love. I'll talk more about the honeycomb in just another segment, but we have a guest to go visit, and we're gonna move outside right now. Right next door, our first guest of the day is over at Redwood Barn Nursery, right next door, so follow me.